Hey, everybody. Brett Jones here. This is lesson 4 for Script Writing 2. We are in chapter 4 of the book. We are dealing with structure. Script writing is all about structure. It's not about waiting for the muse. It's not waiting for inspiration. It is knowing how it is built and getting to work. Okay. So I am going to put some documents out on Blackboard under week 2. These are for you to take a look at and to reference. And I'm looking for one in particular here that I want to share with you. And this is a plot diagram that you can follow. Everything that we're going to be dealing with is going to follow this structure. Save the Cat just breaks things down into very specific elements, but this is every story. All right, it's every story. There's an exposition, rising action, the climax, falling action, and resolution. Exposition or narrative, very beginning, not very long. The rising action, some sort of inciting incident, which we've already talked about, takes place, gets us rising in conflict, all the way to the climax. Action can't go any higher than that. Then the action falls and we have a resolution at the end. That moment after the climax to the curtain closing or the credits rolling is very, very short. So the beginning and end very short. In the middle is packed with action. You'll see in the very center there, it has conflict. You have to understand that storytelling is about conflict. Everything dealing with what we like and what we enjoy, dealing with reading books, short stories, movies, television, streaming, theater, whatever it is all about conflict. We are here to put people into troublesome, difficult situations and see them struggle. And most of the time, we're going to see them win. Okay? Under conflict, you're going to see that the struggles are in different categories: person versus themselves, person versus another person versus society, person versus nature, person versus fate or God. Or there's also another one that I see sometimes called person versus technology. So those are all of the different conflicts that we see in stories. Most of the time, it's person versus person. Okay. So think about your story and think about the conflict that you are trying to create. Again, as I said, this was going to be put out on Blackboard. We've already talked about this one as well. I'm not sure if I'm actually sharing this one. Hold on just a second. And we will switch screens here. Okay, this one is the 10 genres, all right, that we've already talked about. And it has some great examples for each one. So you can take a look at that also and see where yours lies, okay, as far as the genre of what it is that you're trying to write. So we're in chapter 4 of the book, and we are really trying to dig into the elements of what makes a story work based on its structure. Okay. So this is the Snyder beat sheet. This is broken down into the 50-page script. I've also have the full beat sheet, which is for a script that will be 110 pages. But this is actually for you and your script down to the page numbers. That's how structured things actually are. As a matter of fact, you watch enough movies, you can time things out. You can time them, and you'll see that each plot point hits almost exactly the same way every time. And I know you're thinking, well, that's got to be boring. It's not boring. Okay? It's not. It's just the way that we have developed storytelling over a long, long period of time. Okay. So chapter 4 deals with all of these. I will cover this through our uh, lesson, probably break it up into 2 or 3 different lessons to cover this. Okay. So the very first thing, page 1, what is your opening image? What is the first thing that we see? Because it makes an impact immediately on an audience. So what are you going to write down? What are we going to be seeing? It needs to really catch and hold attention. I'm a fan of all kinds of movies. I'm a really big fan of older movies, and older movies really do this very, very well. I'm not saying new movies don't. New movies do as well, but the way that my brain thinks, I think about older movies. So you'll have to forgive me. So I was thinking about a movie called Harper that was made in the 60s with Paul Newman, and he plays a private detective. And in the opening credits, we learn so much about him. He's getting around in his small apartment and he's getting ready to go out. He's trying to look professional. He needs a cup of coffee in the morning to get himself going. There isn't any coffee. So he really wants a cup of coffee. So he goes to the trash can and he gets the grounds from the container from the day before, and he makes a coffee from the previous day's grounds. It's a very short, very simple moment in the opening image, but we learn so much about him. One, he's broke, doesn't have coffee, right? So he's broke. He's willing to do whatever it takes to get what he needs and what he wants. He's practical. He's not against getting a little gross. So we learn so much in just that moment about what kind of character that we're dealing with. That opening image is very, very powerful. Several movies are known for their opening images. I keep going back to Star Wars, but Star Wars has set the standard for so many things for so many filmmakers today. The opening image is very captivating, where you have one giant ship chasing a very small ship and is firing on it with laser cannon. The opening images of Raiders of the Lost Ark, very famous. In the jungle, you've got this mysterious figure that we don't see his face, who's got a map, trying to find this temple out in the jungle. There's so many movies that we can think of and reference that have a very strong opening image, very well known for their opening image, and sustaining that opening image. He mentions Animal House. He also mentions in the book Lawrence of Arabia, which if you haven't seen, you need to see it. Especially if you are a filmmaking student, you need to see that film. It has so many famous moments throughout. Okay, so we are in this period called the setup, and somewhere very quickly we're going to get the theme stated. Okay, somebody's going to say something, there's going to be an image or something that's letting us know what the underlying theme is throughout the story. Okay, you can't always get what you want. You better be careful of the chip on your shoulder, of being prideful. So many different themes that we state. That is stated very early on. And it's buried in dialogue. It's not completely obvious, but it lets us know what it is that this story is going to be about ultimately. The great moral question that's trying to be answered. What are we trying to figure out? What are we trying to do? Okay. This is all in the section called Setup. For a 50-page script, we're talking about pages 1 to 5. This setup lets us know where we are, when we are, why we are, who the people are, who the hero is, what the stakes are, what is the goal of the story. That all takes place in the first 5 minutes. So for a feature length, it's in the first 10 minutes, first 10 pages, excuse me. But you can count about a minute per page, okay? We get it all in that first setup. And I know you're thinking it's very quick. It is very quick. Watch one of your shows that is 42 minutes, 45 minutes long, and you're going to see that it follows this structure to the page, I'm sure, to the minute. So we get the setup of where we are, what's taking place. He's got a really good section dealing with that, and then something very important happens. I called it the other, in one of the other lessons, the inciting incident. He calls it the catalyst. Either way, it's the same thing. It means the same thing. There's something that comes into this world, into the normal world, like we were talking about with Campbell's hero's journey, that changes things. It's the call to action. There's a call to action. There is something that changes the normal course of what is taking place. So again, any show that you like, any book that you like, any musical you like, anything at all, you'll see very quickly that something's introduced that is a catalyst that changes the story. For you, it's going to be on page 6. It's going to happen very quickly. So just like the example I used the other day, the family is there. It's a family that works hard. Mom and dad are both working. The kids are running around all over the place. It's a very hectic kind of a schedule. They're middle class, and grandma is moving in. That comes at page 6. Grandma coming in, page 6, because we have to get on with the action. And I'm going to stress action over and over again, and I want you to understand the difference between showing and telling. Showing is all about action. Telling is where you have the characters talk so much about their feelings and what is taking place instead of showing us. So really poor example of writing is having a character say, "I'm so sad and terrible and miserable." Ugh, that's awful. You need to show us. Show us. Show the car broken down. Show losing the job. Show the kitchen setting on fire. Show us. Don't tell us. It's very boring. It's very, very dull. And it doesn't move the story along very well. Okay? So something occurs. There's a catalyst that takes place. Okay? And that catalyst is very, very important because it changes the course of the character, the main character, and what they're going to do and what's going to happen. As I said, with Campbell, it's usually about the call to action, okay? That form is out for you to look at any time. And you need to fill it out and use it throughout this class, okay? So the catalyst occurs, and then he has a section called the debate section. This is very important, and it usually takes place in a feature-length movie. It's probably about 10 minutes, all right? For us, it's going to be shorter, and you can look at the page count there. It's going to be a shorter period of time. The protagonist doesn't want to do it, whatever it is. We don't want grandma to move in. So we try to find every possible way of not having grandma come in to move in with us, all right? We don't have room. It's going to cost too much money. We can find her a home to live in. Why can't our sister take her? You know, all of these things. There is a fight against accepting this catalyst changing our lives. We have to have that. And again, look at every story and you're going to see there's a denial of that. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to accept the challenge. I'm not going to answer the call to adventure. Then there's something that occurs, that protagonist changes their mind. And it can be a number of things, okay, that actually occurs. But something has to happen where our mind is changed. So maybe with our grandma story, grandma shows up and she's got all of her luggage and she's camped in a tent in the front yard. And people are just horrified as to what is going on and why is this old woman living in a tent in her son's front yard. We don't want the humiliation, we don't want the embarrassment, or we don't want this problem to be out in our front yard and we finally say, okay, mom, you can move in, or whatever occurs. It could be 1,000 different things, okay? So that gets us up to the section called break into two, because every story is broken into 3 acts in script writing, okay? That first act is all about the setup and the catalyst and the accepting of that. Breaking into two, a lot of other things occur. We have a lot of conflict that grows. We have a lot of increasing that tension, building to a climax. There are a lot of wonderful things that occur for our protagonist, but there's also a lot of things that bring the protagonist down, and a lot more conflict and a lot more trouble and a lot more action, okay? So in lesson 5 video, we will talk about what that means, breaking into two. And then you break into 3 toward the end, okay? So again, really pay attention, look at what we have due this week, and keep up with this and keep writing. And if you want to send in some pages before you have to send in half the script, go ahead. Okay, go ahead and do that. I'm going to try to take the time to read, if you want me to read, to give you comments. All right. Now, my comments are going to be about structure and following the structure. Like or don't like doesn't really play into it, because you may have a setup, I don't like it at all. You know, there's certain genres I'm not a big fan of. That doesn't matter. If you like it and enjoy it, that's what matters to me. I'm just going to look at it from a structural point of view to be able to help and assist you along the way. Okay, so lesson 5, we'll jump into break into two and some of the other beats